Hi, I'm Tim Dodge. Welcome to, this is going to be more than 2 minutes with Tim. Um, I thought I would give you a little demonstration of exactly how your research questions get answered once they come into the Big I New York office. First, I want to show you the Geek Cave. So yes, this disaster area is the Geek Cave, also known as my office. And here on the desk we've got various writing tools, my collection of superheroes. You can see BB-8 and Han Solo there. And here's the workstation. So this is a question that came in from a member yesterday. Actually, it's a follow-up. He had written to me about a workers' compensation issue, and he's following up. And this was a PEO situation where a loss that was covered by a professional employer organization's insurance got coded to the client's experience modification, really blowing the mod right out of the water. So he follows up by, and I sent him some information. He follows up by asking, do you have any information on special employer doctrine with regards to workers' comp in New York? Because he thinks that's how his insured might have gotten stuck with that loss. So I didn't know what special employer doctrine was. So I go to my favorite resource here, which is the International Risk Management Institute, or IRMI. One of the first places I go when I have any sort of question about coverage or cases, legal cases or anything like that. So I am going to, now we have, I want to say we have a number of subscriptions to the IRMI manuals. And Big I New York pays a lot of money for this, I know, because I just requested payment for our annual subscription, but it is invaluable. I really probably could not do this job half as well without this information at my fingertips. One of the subscriptions we have is a manual called IRMI Workers' Comp. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to that manual and see what I can find out about the special employer doctrine. Okay, so every IRMI manual has a topical index, arranged in alphabetical order, just like an index that you would find in the back of a book. So I'm looking under the S's for special employer, and now I'm looking at all the topics under the S's, and you can see nothing between sole proprietors and state assigned risk plans, which is where you would expect to find special employer doctrine. So nothing in the topical index on that. I'm going to have to do a search. So this is the advanced search function in IRMI Online. You can see I've typed in the exact phrase special employer, and I've told it to search only in the IRMI Workers' Comp manual. So now I'm going to click search and see what I get. Okay, we did get a few hits when I did a search in the Work Comp manual for special employer. In particular, there is a section of the manual that discusses employee leasing situations, which is what we're talking about here. We're talking about a PEO, professional employer organization. And the phrase special employer does pop up under employee leasing. So I'm going to take a look at that article and see if that can get me a little bit closer to an answer for New York State. Okay, so I found my article about the employment relationship, and see if I can do this. Scroll down, hold the camera with one hand without making it shake too much. You can see there's actually a list of the various states. And the column on the left is states that actually have a law pertaining to this. And the column on the right are states that do not have a specific law or regulation on this. New York actually pops up in the section of states that have a particular law. So now I need to investigate that a little bit further, see if I can figure out what that law is, and then I'll go looking for it. So the IRMI Work Comp Manual has a section with an overview of state workers' comp laws, and then it has another section that reviews the individual state workers' comp laws. So I want to know exactly what I'm looking for before I go looking into New York's employee leasing law. So I decided to click on the overview, and the overview covers as part of it. And you can see in that left-hand column, it covers a lot of areas. But I want to see exactly what it says about employee leasing, because I want to have some idea of, before I find the New York specific information, I want to know what I should, what I can expect to see. You can see there is a chart there, and this is current as of a year ago, showing whether the state requires employee leasing companies to be licensed, if they require registration, if they have an insurance placement requirement, whether the Workers' Compensation Act addresses employee leasing, or whether there is another state law or regulation that that governs employee leasing. So I'm going to scroll down and see what it says about New York. Okay, I've scrolled down to New York. I don't know how well you can see this here. And unfortunately, the headers are not visible on the screen. But basically, it's saying that New York requires employee leasing firms to register. There is an insurance placement requirement. And while employee leasing is not governed by the New York Workers' Compensation Law, it is governed by a different law. So now it's time to go to the section of the manual just on New York to see if I can find out exactly what that law is that pertains to employee leasing. Once I find out what that law is, then I can go find the text. Okay, here is a section of the Army Workers' Comp Manual just on the New York Workers' Compensation Act. It is not the full text of it, it's a summary of its provisions. So somewhere on this screen there is a section about employee leasing. I'm going to scroll down and find that. And here's pay dirt. Okay, the section on employee leasing. It does say that New York law requires registration, that there is an insurance placement statute, and it says here, and I don't know again how well you can see this on the screen, both the professional employer organization, the PEO, and the client company are considered to be the employer under the New York Workers' Compensation Act and are afforded protection under the exclusive remedy provisions of the Act, regardless of which entity obtains the workers' compensation coverage. And it cites the New York Professional Employer Act, which is Labor Law, Article 31, Section 922.4. So I'm going to go find that law and see what it says. Okay, this is another piece of software that I use a lot. This is called NILS OneSource, and it gives me access to all the New York insurance law, many of the New York insurance related laws, not all of them, but many of them, and the New York insurance regulations and New York insurance related regulations, and some other materials. Like if I wanted to, I could find the text of pending legislation on here. So I'm doing a search here. I don't know if you can see it in the citation box. I'm doing a search on labor law section 922.4. You can't see it here, but you can see there in the middle of the screen, it says New York citation format. That basically tells you what to type in to do a search, and it has specific instructions for the labor law. I looked those up, and so that's why I've typed in LAB period with some spaces there, S922.4, because that's what it says to do. So I'm going to click search and see what comes up. And what came up? Nothing. Remember I said that many of the insurance-related laws, but not all of them, are available on NILS. This is an example of one that's not available. So, fortunately, I got a plan B. The New York State Senate has all of the New York State law, insurance, workers' comp, motor vehicle, everything on its website. So I'm going to go see if I can find this section of the labor law there. Here's the New York State Senate's website, and you can see, hopefully you can see it there. In the middle of the screen, there's a link that says Bills and Laws. I'm going to click on that. It's going to give me a choice between bills and the laws of the state, and I'll click on the choice for the laws of New York and start drilling down from there. Okay, I am now going to scroll down. Apologize for any shaking that you may see here. I don't have the steadiest hands. I'm looking for labor law, and there it is. Let's click labor law. And remember the Army manual said that this was in Article 31. So now I'm going to go looking for Article 31. Scrolling. I do a lot of scrolling in this job. And there it is, Article 31, New York Professional Employer Act. So let's click that. And Army said the section looking for is Section 922.4. I'm assuming that means, because you don't see any sections of law here with a decimal after them, so that probably means that we are looking for paragraph 4 of Section 922. So I'm going to click on Section 922, see what it says here. All right, and there's paragraph 4, which says, both the client and the professional employer organization shall be considered the employer for the purpose of coverage under the workers' compensation law, and both the professional employer organization and its clients shall be entitled to protection of the exclusive. This is basically repeating what the Army manual told me. Now, this is a problem. If the client and the PEO are both considered the employer for New York workers' compensation law purposes, then it could be correct that the client got charged for this major workers' compensation loss, even though that employee was technically an employee of the PEO. That would imply to me that the loss belongs to the experience mods of both the PEO and the client. Not the answer I was hoping to give the member here. Let me see if I can dig a little bit further. Okay, now I'm on the website of the New York Compensation Insurance Rating Board. And the reason I'm here is that, for those of you who write workers' comp, you're well aware of this, but the NYCIRB, or NYSERB, or whatever you want to call it, that's the organization that calculates and issues all the experience modifications for employers in New York State. So they calculate the mods. That means they set the rules, and so I want to take a look at the experience rating rules and see if they address PEO situations. And you can see, hopefully you can see there, on that white bar at the top of the screen, right in the middle there's a link for their manuals. They have all their manuals online, the workers' comp manual, all the policy forms, all the experience rating rules, the retrospective rating rules, everything's on there. I don't go to this site every day, but I'm guessing 3-4 days a week I have to look something up here. So let's dive into the experience rating manual and see what it says about employee leasing. I clicked on the manuals link, and you can see on the menu on the left there, those are all choices for the various NYSERB manuals. The next to last one there is experience rating. That's where we're going to start our search. The experience rating manual has an index. You can see it's sort of divided up between, like two halves of the alphabet there, A through G on the left, H through Z on the right. I'm going to start on the left and look under E for employee leasing, and if I don't find anything there, I'm going to look under the H through Z column, just under the word leasing. So let's see what happens. And there, under the letter E, you can see we have a topic for employee leasing. Again, I apologize for the shaking camera here. Coffee's kicking in apparently. I'm going to click that link for employee leasing and see what the rule says. And here's the rule on employee leasing, and this is not good news for our member's client, and a bit embarrassing for me, because when I wrote back to the member yesterday, I said, because this loss got charged to the client rather than PEO, I said I thought somebody made a mistake, and that you need to contact the underwriter and see about getting it corrected. Well, nobody made a mistake here except me. This is what the rule says. The payroll and loss experience of the client's leased and non-leased employees will be assigned to the client for experience rating purposes. So nobody messed up here. There was a big loss, and it was properly charged to the client, even though the client was leasing that employee from the PEO. So the client's experience mod is correct, and there's really nothing that can be done about it. My bad. I should have looked here before I wrote back to the member yesterday, but I'm going to write to him right now and explain to him what the deal is. First thing I'm going to do is generate a PDF. You can sort of see it's covered up by my cursor over there, but one thing you can do is on the NYSERB website is generate a PDF of the rules. So I am going to create a PDF of Rule 5 here, of which the rule I just read to you is part of that, and that way I can send the documentation to the member in addition to explaining why I have egg on my face. So let's create that PDF now. Okay, I've written my email here. I've included a link to the labor law in question, and I've attached a copy of the rules from the experience rating manual, and apologize profusely for giving the guy a bad answer yesterday. Hopefully this will answer his questions on this, but I've invited him to send me any follow-up questions he may have. So this is the end of your long nightmare of watching how exactly I do my work. I'm going to send this email out now. I will, unless I hear back from the member, I'm going to consider this particular issue closed. And I've learned something today, which is actually a good thing. I mean, when I have to look stuff up, especially when I get something wrong, I learn something, and if I ever get this question again, I'll know, because I always remember when I screw up. Those tend to stick with me. So, this has been Insurance Geekery 101, and I hope you've at least found it enlightening as to how I go about answering your questions. Thanks for sticking with me through this video, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching. I'm Tim Dodge.